Hello, friends, and welcome to episode 14 of From the Van. It's a podcast from my van, where I have conversations with people who have relationships with residential vehicles. Today's episode features Bowen Dwelle, who we had the good fortune of interviewing right before he moved full-time into his van. We were headed up north towards San Francisco, and he was like, guys, if we're going to do this, we got to do it right now because I'm moving out of my apartment on Friday. And so we rushed up to San Francisco, changed our travel itinerary a little bit, and swooped into Crissy Field at about 8 o'clock at night and got to have a wonderful conversation with him. So as of the day after the recording of this podcast, Bowen Dwelle has been dwelling full-time in his van, which also incidentally happens to be a Mercedes Metris, the same thing that we're living in. We had a great conversation about the American work ethic, kite surfing, paragliding, generally adventure, writing, and also surprisingly his newfound sobriety. You know, as a regular beer drinker who's not without his own existential issues, it was really good to get a perspective of somebody who's just recently quit drinking, and I think we had a really good conversation about that. Hope you enjoy episode 14 of From the Van, featuring Bowen Dwelle.
Yeah, welcome to Crissy Field.
Yeah, this place is epic, dude.
It was
So into it.
Yeah. You've never been up here, huh?
No, I've been over to the old military buildings along here.
Okay.
But I've never come
Presidio.
out to the field, and it's gigantic, man. And he's he's even more amped up than usual because it's so perfect for him to like trounce around and stuff.
This is a little bit of a success of urban planning. You know, they did a nice job redeveloping this waterfront. Mm-hmm. It was back in the 80s, and my dad was a windsurfer when I was a kid, and he would come down here and windsurf along the city front. Yeah. And I remember coming down here, there was like this old stone retaining wall that just went into the sea, you know, and you had to clamber over that. It was all covered in, you know, seaweed and mussels and all kinds of shit, you know. Yeah. And it was just like, you know, dirt parking lots out here. There used to be an old airstrip, you know, when it was a military base and stuff. And so the last 20 years they've been gradually, you know, redoing this. They put in this kind of pseudo realistic wetland, and they're redoing the whole freeway. Anyway, so it's super nice now. It's amazing, and the fact that we can come down here every day of the week, and you know, park for free and kite and windsurf out here in the bay is it's amazing.
That's wild.
Yeah.
We were actually talking about that on the way up because, you know, it's odd, but it's fortunate. Like I say, I'm a complete pacifist and always have been, but I'm so happy for the Marine base at Camp Pendleton because otherwise you would have Los Angeles from Tijuana all the way to Santa Barbara.
It would just be a huge megalopolis.
You know?
Yeah.
And it's the same sort of deal here. Like, the reason that you have this is because of that military base.
This piece, the Presidio, yes, which is a huge piece of land that I think now it's owned by the city, or I don't know, it's some sort of federal, you know, whatever, but yeah, and then all the other protected land around here from the Golden Gate north, and then even south with the beach, and you know, it's just, we're very fortunate. Of course, a lot of people put in a lot of hard work to like preserve the coast here from development.
Right, sure.
You know, if Eisenhower if his dream had come true, there'd be freeways pasted all up and down this coast. Yeah. You know, and towns and cities and suburbs everywhere too. Yeah. So thankfully that, you know, that stopped before it got fully done. That's
a struggle that I find working in the environmental community is there's this tension between urbanists, which is like the most environmentally friendly way to live.
Yeah, dense,
And the urbanists clash with the environmentalists a lot of times because the environmentalists have this NIMBY ethic. Right? That's great when it pertains to
nasty stuff.
And you know, encroaching on habitat and that sort of thing.
Yeah.
But when it comes to super efficient things like building up instead of out, you end up
It's difficult to reconcile, I think, like the desire for like a peaceful life with, you know, the fact that, yes, it makes more sense for humans to live densely. That's more efficient and more environmentally, you know, sound, right? Because living in the city, like at the end of the day, I don't know, you know, I grew up in the city. I grew up in San Francisco. I'm a city kid.
What part of town did you grow up in?
Noe Valley.
Okay.
Right in the center of the city. You know, it's one of those perfectly old school San Francisco neighborhoods. You know, Victorians, you know, a lot of plumbers, you know, just like totally regular place. But anyway, you know, my point is like not people, you know, you don't want to live in the city. Not everybody wants to live in the city like all their lives or, you know, at all. So like how do you reconcile the two, right? Not everybody wants to live in a skyscraper or a multi-unit building, you know. So we can all live in vans, right? That's that's the alternative. You know.
This may have been a mistake. That's really loud. Okay, baby. Okay, baby. Should I tie him up outside?
No, that's gonna be worse. Just let him have it.
Okay.
Yeah.
His whining is more annoying than
It's just like
him
this, like
chewing on the peanut
it's
butter.
this podcast with a sound bed of cunnilingus in the background.
There is peanut butter all over the upholstery.
That's getting washed soon.
Good thing I put zippers on them.
Yeah.
Always a struggle from the van.
He's digging away for that, totally.
I put it deep in there, so he had to work for it.
Do tell.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
All right, well, let's take a couple of steps back.
Yeah, sure, man. Yeah.
You and I know who each other are because we both have Mercedes
Mattress
Metras
vans.
Yeah.
The mattress club in
Two
here.
of the is this a club of two or it's growing now quickly?
Club of two. Here, I've got a couple of other Metris people that I've connected with online that I haven't actually met yet. And one of the couples actually lives down in San Diego, and we just haven't hooked up yet. But and I think there's if you what's it called? There's somebody up here who's fitting them out professionally, I think.
Yeah, there's a few fitters,
for rental or something, right?
Oh, really? Yeah.
Maybe.
I don't know. There's outfits are popping up all over the place, right? Most of these upfitters are, you know, they do bigger vans. But some now, like there's one in Santa Rosa, I think, that does you know, pop tops, and another guy that was here, you missed him, but he's got one of their conversions. It's basically like a Eurovan type conversion.
Yeah, sure.
Okay.
You know, it's got a little galley. It's all very, you know, German engineered and everything. And, you know, he's got kids and everything, so he wanted to have, like, try to fit as much as possible with seats.
Right.
And all, you know, into the van. And, yeah, so anyway, there a lot, I was telling you, there are a lot of people here at the beach that have bought them for, you know, like, just sports use.
It's a space-efficient cargo van.
Yeah, and that's originally why I bought it, or the primary reason, you know, just as somebody who kind of lives in the city. I'm always kite surfing and paragliding and doing other stuff that involves, like, gear. And if you leave that shit in your car, your car's going to get broken into constantly.
Right.
Constantly. And so I was like, well, I'm looking for a van with no windows, you know, cargo van. And I want something that, you know, drives well. And, you know, okay, Mercedes, great, you know. And, you know, they just started coming out. And, you know, and then once I got the thing, I thought, well, yeah, sure, like, let's put a bed in it, you know, like for
Sort of
weekend
evolved
trips or
to
whatever.
Like, oh, this needs more livability. And
yeah, and so I had my buddy, his company's called Fox Vans, here in the Bay Area. He built my bed and the like bamboo core cabinet, and the bed is really trick. It's like a nice piece of furniture. It's when you pull it open, it's amazing. It looks like it's engineered, you know.
Cool.
It's beautiful.
Cool. This one squeaks when you pull it out. Because I built it with a jigsaw.
Yeah, I hear you. Yeah, well, mine cost, you know, probably like $4,000.
Okay.
I don't know,
I
but
feel
a lot
better now.
for a bed, you know. Yeah, so like, I don't even know. You know, I just been using it like that, right? And then, well, I don't know. I can tell you the story about like how I ended up now, but yeah, that's how we met. Is like I was watching videos on YouTube and stuff, and I was like, Google Metris.
Yeah.
You know, let's see if there's anybody else with a Metris. And then I saw you, and I saw your refrigerator cabinet, and I immediately got a piece of plywood and copied that.
Just like built it, yeah.
Yeah, built one of those.
Yeah, everything in here is really rudimentary, but we spent so much time studying the like theory and working on the theory behind everything that even though it's ramshackle, it works fucking great.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, it seems like you got like the power and water. Like I don't really have water yet. I don't even have I'm just gonna have a jug for this trip.
Dude, it's really kind of unnecessary. It's nice to have the sink. We don't wash dishes in it because we're paying 50 cents a gallon for reverse osmosis water.
Oh yeah.
And insofar as there's a state park every 30 miles or whatever, you just pull in there and do it in the back.
No, I wouldn't be watching it. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. It's just more of a space issue, right? You know, have a jug that's kind of sliding around.
Yeah.
You know, whatever. So, but dude, so I've had a van 2 years, taking some trips in it, you know, like kind of long weekend trips and stuff. And I gotta say, first of all, I'm just so happy. It just feels so cozy, you know? It's just so sweet, you know, to be in your little deal, just like we are here, you know, and I'm posted up at night someplace, and, you know I got something cool to do the next day, and I'm just like, oh, I'm just gonna sleep in my little nest here. It's awesome, right? You know, and then this year, so I turned 49 this year. Now that, you know, in the English language, or in Spanish, you know, when you cumpleaños, you finish the year. It's a good reminder. So like, this is my 50th year.
Right.
When I turn 50, man, 50's done.
Yeah, yeah.
Right?
Oh, wow.
So that, and then my girlfriend and I split up. We were living in this beautiful place in Sausalito. And, you know, various factors. And I just started thinking about, well, like, what am I going to do next? You know, this apartment is too big for me now, too expensive. I don't really need it anymore. Am I going to find a housemate or find some smaller place or whatever? Go stay with a friend. All these things that was kind of racking my brain. It was kind of stressing me out, you know. And then one morning I woke up and I was like, I had a map in my head, you know, like a song in my head.
Yeah.
And this map just connected all the things that I had already been wanting to do this summer.
Yeah, yeah.
And I'm like, I got the map. I got the van.
Yeah.
That's it. I'm just going to check out and go.
Do it. So you're getting ready to the apartment soon?
Tomorrow.
Yeah, dude.
Dude, this is it.
Oh, we're here, man. We're here.
This was the last and only chance.
Okay. Perfect, man.
There we go.
Perfect. Synergy.
Yeah, so thank you for turning up.
Yeah, that's crazy. So tell me about the trip. What's the trip?
Well, I'm a pretty passionate kite surfer. I've been doing that for many years, and now kind of on a professional basis, like I guide trips, kite surfing and stuff.
Okay.
So I do love to kite, and I was kiting here today. I was guiding a friend like out under the Golden Gate Bridge today. So I'll be doing some of that. But in recent years, I've been learning to fly, to paraglide.
Okay.
And flying is just like what I like to, it's like the top of your head comes off and it stays off.
Yeah.
Okay, because it just expands your mind in a completely new way.
So help an idiot out real quick. This is the thing with the big fan on the back of it.
No, there's no motor.
Okay.
There's no motor. It's free flight, wind, just with the wind and the thermals of the air.
Okay.
It evolved
in a plane.
No.
Okay.
No, a paraglider is it's all made of fabric, okay?
Okay.
And it evolved. You can picture 40 years ago it started as a parachute. Okay.
Yeah.
You know, and then the parachutes went from round to square, and they became steerable.
Okay.
And then someone said, well, if we make the parachute a little bigger, then maybe instead of just going down, you know, with the right conditions in the app, maybe we could go up or stay up.
Yeah.
And so they kind of kept enlarging, and then this new craft kind of developed, branched off.
Okay.
And now, with a thing that fits in a backpack, we can go fly around in the sky for hours.
No way.
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
I've heard this term before, and I feel like a complete idiot for not digging in before.
You know, sports
Where do you
nerds
take off,
like
though?
make these new things all the time.
Do you just jump off a rock?
Yeah.
You go over to Marin, where I was
Yes.
on mushrooms one time, going,
That's the place, dude. Exactly.
it's like,
That
okay,
is-
man.
That is the place. You find those little spots where
Okay.
you take mushrooms at night. During the day, we step into the sky in a
you
different
go.
way.
Do you eventually glide down to the beach, or can you land in the same spot?
Sometimes you can land in the same spot.
No fucking way.
Or if you are trying to go, sometimes we can travel, 30, 40, 50 miles, 100 miles.
on purpose.
On
You just
purpose.
read what the conditions are going to do.
Yeah.
And you get some dude who's really mopey
friend,
that day.
yeah,
He's the
exactly.
hungover
Who
guy,
likes to
right?
drive.
He wants to drive the van
Or
over
a
to the
kid with a
place.
motorcycle.
There you go.
If you're in Brazil
Come
or
and pick you
something.
up. Wow.
The world record
Wow.
for distance for paragliding is, they have not yet broken 600 kilometers, but it's like 5 something. I'm talking about in a single day, flying with no engine, just launching off of that little mushroom spot,
Right.
flying in the sky with the thermals in the wind, and traveling 500 plus kilometers.
Jeez, man.
So it's an incredible sport. So
that is crazy. Where do you pee?
yeah, you have a condom catheter or a diaper.
Oh, there you go.
Yeah.
I figured you were going to tell me you just
Just
pull it
pee
Tour de
in the
France and
air.
just put it out the side of the shorts.
You can sort of wing it, but you're liable to get pee on you. It's like, So anyway, I'm going to do a ton of paragliding. I've got some competitions I'm going to be participating in.
Yeah.
So this weekend, tomorrow, I'll be once the movers come to
Yeah.
take my furniture to storage, because I didn't get rid of all of it yet. I didn't have time. I'm going out to the foothills, California, to go to the NorCal XC League to compete paragliding. And then next week I'll drive up through Shasta, through that area to Southern Oregon, to another whole paragliding comp, and for like another week. And then after that I'll work my way up through Oregon, up to the gorge, Columbia River Gorge, Hood River, that whole area. It's just amazing up there in the summer. It's fantastic. Kite surf and run and fly and whatever.
Right.
And then I'll go up to Washington, up to BC, and but generally kind of north and then back south.
Yeah. Cool.
Yeah.
You're not planning on going east at all?
Not really this trip.
Not this trip?
I've got something I'm gonna do. I've got a training that I'm gonna go to in Denver in like mid-July, but I may just fly there from wherever I am.
Yeah, leave your van wherever it's at.
Because it's
fly
just a
over there.
weekend, and like we were talking about earlier, like to put all those miles on the van.
Unless you're gonna link trips,
Yeah.
it makes sense if you're gonna link trips.
Right.
What's the end of the trip? Like, why
Yeah.
does it have an end? Are you maybe gonna just stay out?
I don't know.
Because you don't have a place.
I gave up
after
my
tomorrow.
apartment. That's right.
Right.
So, but the honest answer is I don't know.
Yeah.
Marty,
That's great.
I got 2 months. I have some stuff that brings me back here
Yeah.
in like early mid-August.
Okay.
So I've got an event that I'm producing here in San Francisco, August 14th, and then also I'm going to take one of my best friend's sons backpacking for like a coming of age kind of before he starts high school.
Righteous. Where's that gonna be?
Up in the Sierras.
Okay.
Yeah,
Wow.
5 days.
Cool.
So we're gonna fit that in between, my trip and his like junior lifeguards and whatever else. So that'll bring me back here in August. Now, what after that?
Sure.
Where I'm living? I don't know, man. I don't know. The door's open right
Yeah.
now, so it's totally wide open.
That's the beauty of van life, right? It's just open ended.
Yeah, it's the first time I've been in this situation, and I don't know. I mean, I've lived in a lot of different ways and places and done a lot of stuff, but
Yeah.
I've never been like this free.
Yeah. Colette has she's a budding theater director, and she's assistant directing, or she's actually directing a 10-minute play in this festival in July, and then she's assistant directing a musical at a much bigger theater, on a much bigger stage in September, October.
Late September, October.
And apart from those two things, I was like, we were driving through, and I was like, babe, San Luis Obispo is cool.
Super
Yeah.
nice.
We could just make a couple of
We
phone
spent,
calls
like-
and quit our jobs and
Yeah.
just live here now. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
we spent
San
a day
Luis
there.
is really nice. That whole area.
It was great.
Well, the thing, I have thought the same thing, and I've been down there several times. I got friends there. I'm like, well, I could move down here and, I'd get an apartment or buy a house or blah, blah, blah. And then I'm like, boy, that just sounds like a lot of hassle.
Yeah.
I could just drive there, just in the van.
Hang out until I find something to do.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
like post up at a friend's house who has a whole house that I could just use, sort of.
But like you were saying, and I mean, there are a couple of things that we lack in these little vans and stuff.
Yeah.
But like a sink and a crapper and a shower.
Like all those
It's all
things.
plumbing.
Yeah, that's right.
But those things are readily available a lot of places, especially if you have the right gym membership.
Yeah.
But when we go places, like, I don't want to stay in your guest room, man.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
You'd
My
rather
clothes are
stay
right
in
there.
in your home,
Yeah, and it's like you're saying, it's cozy, man. I pull out the bed and I feel good, and I'm staying in the same place I always stay in. And it's,
Right.
It's wild, man.
Use their shower happily.
I will
But
happily
sleep
take a
in our
dump
own
in
bed.
Yeah.
Take a dump, use their squatty potty, take a shower.
Exactly.
Don't invite me over to stay in your driveway unless you have a squatty potty.
That's funny, man. I just got turned on to that thing recently too. And maybe do you travel with it?
We have a folding one in the
We have
van.
a it's called the Porta Squatty.
Right. 'Cause
Yeah.
I didn't get the folding one because I was like, oh, this is for the apartment.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So you like carry the folding?
We rarely use
Yeah.
it, honestly. But it does change the experience,
It
as you know.
does.
You've been using it?
Yeah, I use it.
Good.
Sometimes I'm mad that I didn't bring it with me.
Yeah.
Where did you learn about the squatty potty from? I'm curious.
I learned about it from my friend who actually we're going to see tonight, and somehow I don't know how she found out about it, but I was staying at her place in Berkeley years ago.
Yeah.
And she
someone
was
had
like,
one.
this thing is so great, and she's telling me all the science
It changes
behind
the way
it,
you
how
poop.
it's just
It's just better.
yeah,
How it's
better for your bowels and all that good stuff. And I tried
it's
it.
the way we're made to poop. I mean, yeah.
And that's essentially what she told me. I was like, okay. And I never had one.
Yeah.
It was just like, you use the little stool you have around the house or whatever. But then when he moved out, I took his squatty potty and put it in my apartment.
Yeah.
just-
It's a great.
Now it's at
item.
my mom's, and my
That's
mom and my
fantastic.
sister fight over it.
Oh, yeah?
I got rid of my apartment. I had to move out in January and put it in my mom's house, and so Mom and Maya fight over it.
Funny.
They love the squatty potty. It's great.
It is. It's great.
My parents are very, extremely liberal for the Deep South, where they live.
Okay.
Which puts them a little bit right of center
Exactly.
for Los Angeles, not to
Right.
mention San Francisco and the Bay Area.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
they were coming out and they rented this house. They came out to Encinitas because my sister lives there too, and to visit. And Katie was like, Mom and Dad are not going to listen if I tell them about this thing.
Yeah,
so I'm just bringing it over and putting it in the bathroom of the
And just see
house
what
that
they
rented.
do with
And
it.
she said, she just went to him. She's like, I put a thing in front of your toilet in the bathroom. It's self-explanatory. Use it,
Right.
and we don't have to talk about
Just
it.
try putting your feet up on it. Yeah.
And we didn't talk about it. They were there for a week,
Yeah.
and they get back
Yeah.
to South Carolina, and in South Carolina, $10 will buy you a fucking mansion, right?
Right.
And I'm talking to my dad, and he goes, I bought a squatty potty for every bathroom
But
in
he's
the
got
house.
like 10 of them.
and my favorite story is that he's got a friend who's like substantially right, in a real way. It was one of his golfing buddies, and he's telling him about it after playing golf one day, and the guy's like, blah, 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 blah. And my dad's turned into a complete evangelist about the thing.
Yeah,
you know?
right.
Yeah.
And the guy's like, I don't know. My dad goes, hey man,
Try it.
you're only taking 2/3 of a poop.
That's a good way to put it. That's a good way to put it.
No, I got one for my dad and my stepmom. and
Fuck. This
Dad
is a Squatty
keeps-
Potty podcast.
Yeah,
I know.
Squatty podcast. From my fan.
Oh my god.
Hey, we get on this. I opened it. Yeah.
Who cares?
Hey, it's a great thing.
Yeah.
But I got one for my dad and my stepmom, and Dad sent me a text one day, and he's like, I don't understand this thing. I feel like I'm peeing 6 inches off the ground. And I was like, okay, you're not using it right. Try again. And he sends me a picture a couple days later. He's sitting on the toilet, and has it in his lap and has his like breakfast bowl and like coffee.
He's using it like a TV tray.
Yeah.
The guy's not an idiot. He's fuking hilarious.
Yeah, he sounds like a genius.
He's like, he goes, I still don't get it.
Figured out how to eat dinner on the toilet. I mean, you know.
Yeah, it's genius, really.
The funny thing is, so I heard about the thing. This may be the last squatty potty anecdote.
They never get old.
I heard about it and I thought, well, let me test this concept before I buy one. Mm-hmm. And so I just sat on the can and like held my legs up in the air.
And you shit an ab out.
Yeah, well, you know, I got pretty good abs, so like it worked. I was like, well, concept validated. You know, like I'll buy one.
Oh boy. Okay, let's go way back. So we started this podcast. We hit the ground running, talking about urban planning, which is totally unexpected to anybody who's like trying to learn about van life by listening to a podcast.
Good point. Yeah.
But that's your background, right?
Well, I mean,
it's your education.
It's my education. Yeah. I studied geography at UC Berkeley.
Okay.
And then
cool.
like which, you know, is often closely associated with urban planning.
Yeah.
You know, a lot of people go from one to the other.
Land use and all that.
Yeah. And then in my 30s, basically, when I sort of retired for the first time, I went to grad school. And I went to grad school for urban planning at University of Wisconsin in Madison. Because I also love the Midwest.
Yeah.
Or the upper, in
I
particular,
haven't been there at all.
The upper
great.
Midwest is amazing. The Great Lakes, you know, beautiful. Mm-hmm. So yeah, I have a lot of geography. I mean, I was kind of born with a geographer's brain, like the shape of the earth and how we inhabit it and how those two things interact. That's what geography is in a nutshell, right?
Yeah.
And
Which is why you woke up with a map in your head.
Yeah. Exactly.
Yeah.
And I just I often think in those terms, you know, and like, and then urban planning is kind of like one way is like applied geography to the urban setting. Mm-hmm. You know, regional planning, okay, it's a bigger scale. Architecture is on a single building scale, you know, but they're all related. Mm-hmm. You can just see them as kind of a continuum of like I said, sort of like applied geography. Yeah. But I never worked in that field. In fact, I dropped out of planning school because I ran to an ex-girlfriend back here in San Francisco.
Been there.
And proposed like the same night, and did I forget that she was my ex-girlfriend? I don't know.
And then there was probably a good reason for that.
Right, exactly. And she said, "Well, you're in grad school. What are you in Wisconsin? What are you going to do?" I said, "Don't worry. I'm going to drop out of grad school. I'm going to move back to San Francisco. Mm-hmm. You know, we're going to get a place. It's going to be amazing." Yeah. Yeah, and it was terrible, but.
And it was terrible.
Yeah, that's how I did not end up as an urban planner, perhaps.
Wow.
Women.
Crazy. Well, I mean, this is the burning question from the last 2 minutes. The first time you retired?
Yeah, I was thinking the same thing.
The fuck is all that about?
Early and often, my friend.
Okay.
Early.
Teach us.
And often. I mean, the whole idea, right, that we should be, we know this now, right, that we should be working all our lives full time, so it's just nonsense.
Yeah.
We're not born to do that, you know, and there's a reason that so many people are depressed in the modern world.
Straight up, yeah.
And, you know, partly it's too much work that sucks, you know, lack of connection. There's a lot of, you know, other reasons too, but those are like the main reasons.
Yeah.
Is like, you know, it's not that. Anyway, that's why we're depressed, right? A lot of people, because like we have to work too much, and a lot of jobs suck. Yeah. And that's just not a good way to live. Mm-hmm. So I did somehow acquire I had some sense of that, even from a very, very young age. I think mostly because my dad, you know, kind of worked for himself a lot and didn't have a totally conventional working life by any means. And so I, like from the age of 8, like I had a paper route. You know, and I was making money. Yeah. And then I learned to program computers from him. Mm-hmm. And so when I was 10, I was like programming computers after school. Right. And, you know, so I had that experience super early in life of like earning money in my own way as like a free agent, you know, And it just got into my blood, you know, again, from super, super young. And so I've had a few jobs, but I've mostly worked for myself or had my own businesses. And yeah, I also believe, like, I mean, I don't know if I want to change, you know, go do something else, or you know, like if I sort of came to the end in the case of like this first retirement I mentioned, I had finally come to the end of a job, that was here in San Francisco with Wired Magazine, which was, you know, an amazing company to work for, and like a hotbed of like innovation and super smart people.
Yeah,
and
Rad
it was
Magazine.
like the beginning of this was in the late 90s, like the very beginning of the internet, so it was just like a super cool place to be. And yet I knew that I did not want to continue in that path of like the path that I was on, the sort of career path. I didn't want to become a techie.
Right.
I didn't want to spend my life programming computers. And I had started this little business, or this conference that was to become a business. I didn't really know it was going to be a business, but I had started this conference while I was working at Wired. And that job, that company finally came to an end. The company was acquired, and you know, there was all this kind of, it just was no fun to work there anymore. So I quit, and I decided to go to grad school for urban planning, because I thought, well, this is my chance to go back to what I loved. You know, when I was studying geography.
Right.
Now it's 10 years later. I'm in my early 30s, and I thought, well, maybe I could really do this now. So I took, you know, 3 years off or something or whatever, you know, and I went to grad school. And I had this business, or this conference that was starting to be a business. It was already producing a little bit of income.
Right.
So, you know, retired, I mean, I wasn't sitting around. I mean, not that anyone should or really does.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, you know, I was like 32 or 33. I was in grad school. I was, you know, it was pretty cheap to live in Wisconsin. I had an assistantship that paid my tuition and paid me an hourly wage when I worked for them. And I had this little business that I was earning, you know, 40, 50 grand a year from already, even though it was just like early stage. So I was rolling, you know, as a grad student. I was doing great, you know.
No debt, like.
Yeah, exactly. No debt, zero, nothing. Totally, you know, free. So that was kind of my first, or one of, you know, retirement. I mean, I don't know. You know, it was a change of life, let's say.
Right.
You know, a total kind of a redirection. And then now I don't know if it's my second or my third. I always say it's my third retirement. I don't know when the first one was, because we just did one and now two. Like, so 15 years later, I had built that conference up into a successful, very modest business. You know, a small business, but a business, you know, still that was like, I had 10 employees. It was successful. It was profitable. It was growing, and I managed to sell it to someone else.
Okay.
And I wanted to. I mean, I was tired of that business. I've been doing it 15 years. I've been through that cycle of business for like so many times. And it took me 5 years. I mean, to find a buyer and get the business together to the point where I could sell it, et cetera. But I did.
Right.
I did. I sold it. So that was 4 years ago. So that really started another sort of huge change in my life. And that's, you know, what eventually brought me right here.
Right.
To you.
Yeah, sure.
But I just like choose freedom, man. I mean, like one way or the other, right? It's like in terms of how we work, how we live, you know, I mean, and I don't mean that you have to live in a van. I mean, I'm not even living in my van.
Right.
I maybe as of tomorrow, literally, I will be.
Yeah.
We'll see. You know, but I mean, in terms of, first of all, in terms of the choices that we make with our working life and our, you know, what we purchase, what we commit to financially, all that stuff, right? I mean, we can choose. We can choose more freedom or less freedom.
So I don't have a passive revenue stream. You know what I mean?
Yeah, no,
or a particularly active one, but in spirit, I completely, and this is a dickhead thing that I rarely say to people unless I'm in a bad mood or I know them. But the snarky response that I have to this old adage that that youth is wasted on the young.
Uh-huh.
You've heard that?
I have, but yeah,
before?
it's like, what does it mean? Even I'm not even
My
sure.
My answer to those folks is retirement is wasted on the old.
On the old,
and,
right?
And
why should we wait?
I remember I was in my last semester of law school.
Right. Youth is wasted on the young, yeah.
And I was
law school.
I was standing in line at the coffee shop, and this guy who's in front of me at the coffee shop looks at the bar review book that I have in my hand.
Right.
And he's like, studying for the bar. I was like, well, I got one more semester left, but yeah, in the summer.
Yeah.
He goes, be careful. And I'm like, what are you talking about?
Yeah, be careful.
He goes, well, you get the job, and then you get the house.
Yeah.
And then you get the car.
Right.
And then you have to keep practicing
You
law.
need the job.
And that's what he told me, and I was like, whoa, man. I mean, I agreed with him, but I was like, that is heavy duty. And it's so weird. I feel weird even pointing this out, but the dude was in a wheelchair. Not that has anything to do with the story, but that's one thing that makes it stick in my mind.
Made it
because
more impactful.
Well, and I mean, it's just another thing that's sort of like, was
heavy,
hemming him in,
right,
and making the thing more heavy.
Yeah. Yeah.
But yeah, and the other thing that you said a minute ago that really touched my my sort of socio-political outlook on the obviation of jobs as a result of tech and stuff is that I know a bunch of people who don't do shit, and most of them have jobs. And I know a bunch of people who don't have jobs that do a lot of stuff.
They do a lot, right?
You know what I mean?
You use
it's like
time, or you mean
I know tons of.
Totally.
I know tons of shiftless people who are collecting a check.
Right.
And I know a whole bunch of tremendously innovative people who are underperforming, or whatever. They're making less money. They're making the money that they have to make to fulfill their obligations or whatever. But they're making less money than their supposed earning potential is or whatever like that. Yeah. So I totally feel you.
Well,
there.
because, going to work every day from 9 to 5 or 8 to 6 or 7 with the commute or blah blah blah, you make money, and there's all these other things about it that can be very interesting. I mean, I've had some pretty cool jobs, but it also consumes a vast amount of your energy and your time.
Right.
And I think the truth is, for a lot of people, that it is literally depressing. And it's not to say, okay, well, we should all just stop working and like there's some sort of magic world of, where that's possible, but we do choose, each and every one of us, every, minute and year of our lives, we choose what to do, what to commit to, and again, like, do we back ourselves into a corner with what we need to pay for, so that then we're stuck with that hour and a half commute or whatever it is. And then you are depressed, and then you don't have any energy to do anything else, even get yourself out of that situation.
Right.
And then that's your life.
Yeah.
And I've been there. I mean, I've been that way, essentially. I think another side of it maybe also is that, like, we have a need for, security and stability, right? And like to know that, you have a home, that, you have, feed yourself, feed your family, just be safe, these basic things. And I know too, like, I spent the last 15 years living back here in San Francisco, and, I lived 10 years in one place, in one neighborhood, because I just knew that I needed stability at that time in my life. And I think that, that's just a basic need, but also because of how our society works, like, that basic need is often so strong. Like, I just need my house and my family, and I'm willing to commute for an hour and a half each way or whatever, It doesn't matter, because as long as I have that, it's worth it, right? And that's just because, or partly because, we're not getting enough from like the rest of our world. We're not getting enough in terms of connections with other people. We don't have enough personal freedom.
Yeah.
So that it's like everything is in that one basket of like home, car. Okay, I got my wife, my kids. That's it, and I'll do anything for that.
Just to make this sustain.
Just
this
to
thing.
keep this, just to sustain that, which I understand.
Yeah.
It seems like there's no other choice. But there is. And here it is.
Well, there are an infinite number of choices.
Yeah, that's the thing. It's not just this at all. There's many choices.
Stability and ownership
are overrated.
Well, and they're...
They can also mean different things to different people.
Good point.
Yeah.
Stability can mean a lot of things depending on who you are.
Yeah.
Well, and my man Nassim Nicholas, how does it work? Nassim Nicholas Taleb, I think. Nassim Taleb. He's more famous for The Black Swan, for this book called The Black Swan, but I didn't read that. I wrote this other book called Anti-Fragile. And his point is the illusion of stability, is just that.
Yeah.
It's an illusion. If you think that you get security through stability and like sameness and protecting that is very fragile.
Yeah.
It's very fragile because all it takes is one thing to change and your whole security is gone. Much better, his whole point of this whole book, Anti-Fragile, is to build your life to pursue kind of an anti-fragile strategy. Dog, yeah, you are making a lot of noise.
He is the worst.
Par for the course.
Which is to, learn how to deal with change.
To be malleable.
To be malleable, to be flexible, to go with the flow. It's the same as what the Buddhists teach too, just flow with the river, right? And then your world is not fragile.
Yeah.
And then someone throws you a curveball and you're like, I got that. That's cool. No problem.
Well, and that's when you start thinking about if you figure stability as being predictable sameness or whatever, then that dude who gets the law firm job and the house and the car, from the outside world's perspective, his life is super stable because he can't do anything but one set of like routines.
Yeah, that's true too. Stable means two things.
Debt made stability for him, but that's not, like you said, what we necessarily want.
And it's not really what works, I think, for the human brain, literally, in many ways. And there are a lot of people, writing and doing research these days about depression. I bring this up again because like I was depressed for many years in my life, and partly had to do with alcohol, and partly also just had to do with how I was living, and it's like it's all co-involved, but like why now, it's like America, everyone's been depressed for so many years, then we got all these antidepressants, all this shit. Why is 20 or 30% of Americans are on antidepressants or some insane number like that? It's completely insane. And for a while, for many years, the accepted kind of story about that was that, well, if you're depressed, like you are depressed because you have a chemical imbalance, something got out of whack in your body, or you were born that way, and that's why you are depressed. So if you take this medicine, it'll fix that imbalance, and then you won't be depressed anymore. Well, that's nonsense.
Right.
That's backwards.
Right.
You have the chemical imbalance is the evidence, of a problem, not the cause of the problem, right? And the reason that people are depressed is because, again, like, if your life sucks, you should be depressed. Yeah. That is the appropriate response. If you have no friends, you should be depressed. That is the appropriate response. Your brain is telling you, like, fix this. Yeah. You are living wrong. Go make some friends. Go do something else. Change something. Change everything. And that. So, it's like you can't just say that all of modern society is broken. It's not. But there are some things, that that really don't work so well for a lot of people. And I think we're starting, we're seeing some.
Starting to recognize it, I think. Yeah.
Totally.
Yeah. People shit on the millennials and the next generation, and I just think that they're figuring shit out that that we and the generations before us sort of broke about.
Right.
A culture and lifestyle and priorities and that sort of thing.
Well, every generation probably breaks a bunch of shit or comes up with their own thing. But I think you're right. You're right, man. I mean, just think of all the things from the 20th century that are already totally obsolete, okay, and or soon will be. Like, we were talking about freeways.
Yeah.
Now, some freeways are good, okay, but freeways were only really built from 1954 or whatever it was that Eisenhower kicked off the whole plan into the 70s, and by 80 that had almost stopped because people started protesting. Like, we don't want no more freeways. I mean, of course, you have like petroleum. We passed peak oil a while ago. We passed peak automobiles a while ago. Yeah. Then you have other things like, more recently, I mean, you have like sugar, let's just say more recently.
Right.
We finally realized like eating a ton of sugar is
not great.
Not
7
good.
Coca-Colas a day.
So like
Not great for you.
So like we're pretty close to, we passed peak sugar, let's say, and not to mention like preservatives and chemicals and all these synthetic molecules that cause tons of cancer. I mean, it's just like insanity. All that stuff's obsolete.
Yeah.
Obsolete, right? And I don't know, maybe the millennials will discover that not everybody has to have a standard job. They have discovered that. A lot of people are working remotely, and it's there's a lot more options now, right?
So what's this thing that you're coming back apart from the backpacking trip? What is this other thing that you're coming to host or lead? What is it?
Cool, thanks. In mid-August, I'm coming back here to host an event at a place called the Battery, the Battery is like it's a social club, a new school club. Like there are these old school clubs in New York and cities like the Pacific. I don't even know the names, whatever. But there are these new clubs too. I guess there's like Soho House in New York and London and stuff. So it's kind of like that. It's a place that I've been involved. I was a member when I had this business, and now I'm what they call a creative in residence there.
Okay.
So they call me membership, and I come up with ideas and like cool stuff to do.
Cool.
Kind of bring interesting people in there, and they have a whole bunch of CIRs there. Anyway, the event that I'm doing is called how to phrase it? What are you drinking? Actually, what are you drinking? So what are you drinking? That's like the question. Anytime, what are you drinking? And it's a conversation about alcohol.
Okay.
I stopped drinking pretty recently, just like a year and a half ago.
Okay.
Because I realized that like I was still a teenage booze hound at age 48, and that like that just wasn't gonna look good, any longer in my life, and was really, it was not just, I finally realized it wasn't good for me. And it's changed my life in a big way. And I also discovered that it was just a super simple, easy thing to change. It was just no big deal.
Yeah.
I just stopped, and I don't miss it.
Cool.
And, I know that for a lot of people, then the way that we think about it, the way that society thinks about it, the way the medical world thinks about it, like it's a big deal. It's like, oh my God, you might have a drinking problem. Well, let's talk about that. Well, let's see. You might have a disease.
Yeah.
It's like, no, actually, you might just have a bad habit.
Yeah.
And like habits can be kind of tricky, but you can pretty much change any habit in like 30, 60 days. It's really doesn't have to be such a big deal. Sure. And that's what the science says now too, for the most part. So anyway, so we're having a conversation, kind of a panel about kind of the modern science and neuroscience of, like alcohol and how it really works, and, how it affects our bodies actually. and then we're gonna have an open bar with a bunch of like stuff like this amazing NA craft beer from Surreal Brewing here in the Bay Area.
Yeah.
I don't know this one.
Yeah, me
Yeah.
either. He showed me that
Surreal.
can earlier. I haven't
It's
heard
a
of
cool
it.
can.
The can's kind of crushed now because I've been pulling it in and out
That's
of my.
alright. It's real pretty.
Yeah, and
Good for them.
there's a bunch of NA craft brewers now around the country. It's totally like all over the world, actually.
Cool.
You know, and so we're gonna just kind of open a conversation about it, just to help some more people learn kind of what the state of the art thinking is about alcohol.
Cool. Well, I mean, I actually really am. I'm interested to pick your brain about a couple of things there.
Yeah.
She's vegetarian.
Yeah.
And I'm not.
Me too. Most. 99%.
So we're like basically
Easier in the van.
we're veggie in the
Sure,
van.
like,
Yeah.
it's
And then
easier
when we
for
go
him.
out, I eat meat and
Yeah.
I've been
stuff mainly.
vegetarian for 11 or 12 years now. Almost 12.
Mm.
Yeah, long time.
Yeah.
And
I love it.
and
Yeah.
so I've heard and understand and appreciate and respect the arguments, the ecological, greenhouse, and ethical arguments against eating meat. Right.
Yeah.
I just haven't made the decision to abide by them yet.
Sure.
And I hear those, but then from a physiological perspective, for me, humans have been eating meat for a really long time, and
Sure.
I don't think that it's necessary for me to eat meat, but I also don't think that it's going to kill me next week. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So the way that I tie that back to like sobriety and stuff is, you're a great person to ask, and I didn't know I was coming into this conversation, but like I drink a shit ton of beer. And I don't think that I'm like dependent on it. I think that if I decided that I wanted to, I could stop drinking beer tomorrow, just like you did,
Yeah.
And I know people who have been long-term, heavy-duty drinkers who have done the same thing, right?
Yeah.
Just like, I don't
Good.
want to do
That's
this anymore.
Cool to hear that.
Or
Yeah,
whatever.
good.
And I really do think that I could do that. What is the...
Like why? why?
Well, what is the... Maybe personally for you, if you're comfortable asking this question
Whatever.
or answering this question, but then also from a technological and scientific perspective, what is the argument about quitting versus moderating? Where do you fall there, and then where does the
Interesting,
state of
okay.
the art fall there? Because I
Yeah.
know that like all of the like if you look into any like alcoholism problem or programs or anything, it goes straight to you have a
Never
drinking
again.
problem, you have a
Yeah.
disease,
Right.
if you're not now,
Yeah.
you never were, sort of thing, right?
Right. Yeah. So, why for me, and like, what about like moderating versus? Those are the
Yeah,
two
yeah.
questions. Yeah. I mean, happy to, I can just sort of tell you my story specifically, and I will, but maybe answer the second piece first,
Sure.
which I heard answered in the way that most resonated with me just recently by this guy Andy. Whatever his name is, Andy, the guy that started this thing called 1 Year No Beer, which is like a big movement out of the UK, which has gotten a lot of people to just like try not drinking for 30 days, because that's what he did, and he was kind of amazed at how good he felt, basically, just how good he felt. Anyway, and what he points to is physiologically, like, in fact, you said it, right? Now, and I'm not arguing that no one should drink anything, but whatever.
Sure.
But you said it yourself. Like, if I drink a few beers, a couple times a week or whatever it is, it's probably not going to affect me that much or
Right.
something. So it does. Any amount of alcohol
Sure.
does affect you. And the thing that he points to that I think hits the nail on the head is, first of all, is sleep. Sleep quality is like the first thing that is affected. Even just like with like even a couple of beers, a couple of drinks, and sleep quality like affects everything else, right? Affects our mental, our acuity, like the mood that you wake up in, you just your physiological health, like the rhythms of your body, right? If you don't sleep well, you're just not going to be living as well. So, you know, it's like, well, the less you drink down to zero, the less your sleep and everything else in your body is going to be affected.
Right.
Yeah.
So it's, you know, it's true for most people, a couple of beers, it's like they probably don't really notice any major effect.
Right.
His point is, well, you might just try
Right.
30 days without any and just see for yourself.
Yeah.
He's like, I did, and it blew my fucking mind. Because this was a guy, just like most of us, that, you know, he's in his 20s, he's working in finance in London, he's out drinking every night, you know, just like I was until I was, you know, 48, basically, you know, essentially. And, you know, I just didn't know, that was my normal. So I didn't know what any other normal was like. And it, for me, to get back to my story, it's like, you know, my normal had sort of gotten worse and worse. I mean, not to the point where I was like a fall down drunk by any means.
Sure.
But it's more just that the you know, these gradual effects of like sleep quality and like the other, you know, just physical, you know, you know, just that, and had just gotten, you know, kind of cumulatively worse and worse over the years. And of course, as you get older, you know, that's compounded as well.
Sure.
And then on top of that is another thing that for me was really the biggest thing for me that got me to stop drinking, which is the relationship between alcohol and depression. And that's something that I realized personally, it like finally became clear to me. And then once I started reading about it, there's so much evidence that shows how these, you know, it just, you know, alcohol is a depressant. We all heard that in high school.
Yeah.
But never connected that to depression, right? But that's kind of what happens, you know, at least at some point, however much you have to drink to, you know, for this to kind of kick in. It varies probably for everybody. But, you know, if you kind of drink like I was, like something, you know, pretty much every night, you know, even if it's just a couple of beers or, you know, maybe it's more some nights. Well, every morning, you know, I'm waking up kind of literally physiologically depressed, you know, and that makes you mentally depressed. You don't have as much energy. I'm just kind of feeling kind of not optimal, you know, kind of tired, you know, a little bit, maybe it's hungover, you know, that, well, over the years, that it just adds up, you know, you feel a little bit like shit, and that kind of leads you to feel more like shit, basically. And so having suffered as I did for many, many years, like with depression, and also with this what's the right word? Like super frustrating, you know, fact that went along with it, that like, I'm depressed, but why? There's no good reason. Like my life is great.
Yeah.
So why am I depressed?
Did it completely lift when you stopped drinking?
Yeah. Pretty much. I mean, not like the day one, but like yes. I mean,
But you're not dealing with it now at all.
No, no. I mean, well, it's night and day. I mean, you know, I mean, it's still, it's a matter of degrees.
It's
you
there.
know? So it's something that I can recognize, but it's like my baseline of my psychological well-being has gone from, you know, like a situation where, you know, it goes up and down all the time, but where like the average was below good. Okay. And it took, you know, a special event to kind of get into well, I feel kind of okay today.
Right.
You know, to whereas now you can see I'm like manically happy, basically, you know, like I'm doing pretty well, you know, and that sensation of being down here, which is, you know, depression I know what that looks like, but I don't go there anymore.
Cool, man. I really appreciate you sharing all of that,
no problem.
man.
That's
Good for you.
That's like vulnerable and brave and informative for me.
Yeah, I'm happy to. Because there's no, it's something we all do.
Yeah.
Right? Like almost most people drink.
Yeah.
And we just think, like I did, and not to like go on, but like I've been thinking about this because this event too, right?
Right,
like
sure.
I've teed up this whole event. It's
Yeah, you got a lot of work to do on this exact topic. Yeah.
I woke up maybe it was even this morning or whenever it was, and I was like, it's 2 months from now, and I was already kind of like writing my speech to introduce this thing anyway. And it was about the norm, like what's normal.
Right.
And for me, normal, starting at about age 11, involved some degree of alcohol.
Oh, wow.
And, a lot of us start drinking in our teens, right? I mean, that's normal for a lot of people and so I just didn't know like what the other normal could be.
Right.
And so once I tried it, I was like, oh my God.
Yeah.
Like I want to feel like that all the time. I want to sleep like perfectly every night.
Every night.
Just that alone was enough to do it for me, really.
Sure.
Just waking up like, holy shit, I feel great.
I've noticed that when I take breaks from drinking that like a couple of days in, I get a night's sleep that's different.
Right.
Yeah, I do recognize that, but I also love beer, man.
So what do you love about beer? I mean,
I get into this like it's largely a social thing. I love talking to strangers, as you can tell.
Yeah, me too.
And it's largely a social thing that like I go to the bar and like start talking to strangers, and I do get in a sort of euphoric rhythm, a certain way into the thing. And I definitely can get there. I can get there otherwise without much trouble.
Yeah.
But and I mean, maybe this is another problem with our culture, but like, that's the place. You know what I mean?
Sure. Yeah.
It's like you go to the park and just start chatting to people, and some of them are weirded out, right? But those same people, especially people who aren't extroverts, right? I am or whatever, those people have a couple of drinks in them and they'll start talking to me. So
sure, interesting. I mean, I know what you mean.
Yeah. We're gonna run out of time on the camera.
Probably like out of batteries.
We're gonna run out of time on the second camera in just a second. But
no worries. Yeah.
So where was that? Now that we've got a new lease on life, there was another alcohol-related question that I wanted to ask you. And this is where I started way back on the vegetarian thing.
Right.
Why drink non-alcoholic beer?
Oh yeah, that's a good question.
He asked me this all the time.
Why eat fake meat? Why do you need a burger if you're a vegetarian?
Good point. Well,
I don't want to drink decaf.
Well, I do now too.
Do you?
Mostly.
Are you a complete teetotaler at this point?
No.
You smoke weed?
Yeah, sure.
Okay.
Yeah, sometimes. I like to eat it more, actually.
Yeah, sure. I'm there. I'm with you. That's my game, too.
All kinds of plants, actually.
I don't want to eat meat, but I like the taste of meat. Like, I don't want to be a part of that industry, but I love the taste. So I'm still I like the substitutes.
Yeah,
I don't know if it's similar when it comes to
stuff. Beer,
it's a similar thing.
I drink, like these NA beers sometimes, because, I mean, I like the taste of beer. Now, here's the thing: when you start drinking NA beer, you realize like you're only going to really ever have one because it doesn't do anything.
Right.
There's no point in really having two because after that you just drink water.
To your point about. Well, and I was thinking about this when I was asking you this question about like what about moderation versus abstinence.
Yeah.
And I thought before I started drinking, because I didn't start drinking until after I was 21, and I believe now that the way to drink is to binge drink, because the point is alcohol. If you're gonna do it, you might as well get a buzz on. You know what I mean?
And then just not drink at all in between.
Right. Because when I drink one beer, I'm like, why do I even do that?
There's no point.
And I work in the beer industry, and I'm very passionate about the beer industry, and I appreciate the styles and the making and all that. So I can drink one beer and or just do a couple tasters, and I'm like, great, cool, I learned something, I had tried something new, I'm good to go.
Yeah. Partly also...
Yeah, go for it.
Partly also I drink this, like, craft any beer just because I just think what they're doing is cool.
Yeah.
Yeah,
you know,
for sure.
and it's like, I'm just kind of curious. Yeah, to support them. Exactly.
Yeah.
So that's, but there's, you know... I just like the beer, taste of beer.
Yeah,
you know, I mean,
it's ingrained. It's ingrained in like 35 years of your life.
Yeah,
whatever,
exactly.
Right?
Yeah, you know.
So the question I was going to ask that we got cut off for, you don't strike me as somebody who's gonna like chill out.
To chill out.
You're
sometimes.
you hang and you participate, but you want to make some new stuff.
Things, yes.
Yeah,
a lot.
So like after the event this summer and after the trip, you may be in an apartment, you may be in a van. Do you have an idea about like another
what I'm doing.
project? Do you have another project?
Yeah, well, actually, that's funny. Like the whole, what I described, this whole trip, like the paragliding and kiting and all this stuff. That's kind of in between what is like my job now, my third or fourth career that I'm just beginning is as a writer.
Oh, cool.
And so I'm not a full-time like kite surfer or paraglider pilot or athlete or whatever. I mean, I do a lot of that stuff, and it is a huge part of my life and who I am. But what I remembered this year, and I think this was in part, in fact, because I got sober and my brain is just working better, that I literally remembered that when I was 14, I was, writing stories in like creative writing class or some shit like that. I was writing and I enjoyed it. And I thought to myself, I can't even remember where I was. I was in my mom's flat on Church Street. I was in the back room. We had an IBM PC Junior. We had a little computer. And I thought to myself, I want to be a writer. But, I don't know how to do that now. I'm just a kid,
Right.
And so I will do that. I will kind of bookmark that for later in life. In fact, in my 50s is what I thought when I was 14. Okay. And then, I went and did all this other stuff. I kind of forgot about that. And in fact, for many years, I would tell people that I was kind of angry because I wasn't one of those people that knew what I wanted to do with my life,
Sure.
And it would be so much easier if I did, And then this year, I fucking remembered what I thought when I was 14.
Wow.
And I looked at the clock and I was like, holy shit. It just in time.
Turn it on, man.
Just in time, just in time.
Yeah.
And so that's really what I'm doing now is practicing. I mean, that is, working on becoming a writer, which you can only do just by writing.
Yeah.
Just like anything else. And just practice and, you gradually get better. And that's what I'm doing.
Okay.
Wherever I am.
Right.
So this summer, that's the main, I should have said, in fact, that's like the main thing that I'm doing is writing.
You're going to go have these adventures and then use them as inspiration for...
Yeah, or really, that's just those adventures, that's just part of what keeps me alive.
Yeah, sure.
And just keeps me awake and switched on and, myself.
Yeah.
And yes, to some extent, but I don't really write about that stuff, like, first and foremost.
Just keeps your brain going.
Totally.
Yeah.
Keeps me healthy.
Keeps you fueled and
Yeah. Just keeps me healthy. Keeps me living well, and gives me the energy to put into, it gives me, that's where creative energy comes from too. It's
Sure.
So that's what I'm doing is writing, and, everyone says, like, if you want to write, you got to write every day.
Yeah.
That's the main thing. I just went to see, just at lunch today, the sci-fi writer Neil Stephenson, the guy who wrote Cryptonomicon, Snow Crash, Sevens is, like a bazillion amazing books. He was speaking today just at Fort Mason.
Okay.
At the Interval, which is some thing that another thing I'm a member of. So I could see this amazing writer. I said, Neil, how do you do it? What's your secret? What did you learn about creativity from your 25-year career as a uber successful writer. He's like, I just wake up, I write for an hour. That's it. I write every day. That's it. There's no secret.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So that's what I'm doing.
Rad.
Yeah. Yeah. And this event, that's just an interest of mine.
Yeah.
I mean, I've always like producing and creating whatever. If I have an opportunity to do something, I'll usually just try to do it, but that's all kind of, I do also like to have like 3 or 4 things going on. So this, like, also this summer, I'm going to do a coaching program. I'm going to train to become a coach, like a kind of to help people who want to drink less. Yeah. Basically. Okay. So I'll be starting to do a little bit of that work, hopefully. And this event that I'm doing is, tied, is really in that world of my life. Sure. That my hope is like to develop that as kind of a, nice side gig that also, gives me work with other people, because writing is, very solitary. Sure. So that those would be, will be a good complements to each other in my, and both completely, not tied to any particular place, right? I can write, I can do coaching work from anywhere. Right. Right. Yeah. That's the plan, man.
Super cool.
That's awesome.
Man. Well, I look forward to following your trip and seeing what happens when you get back.
Yeah, I know, man. I don't know. Yeah. I don't know, you guys.
That's like, very exciting.
What? Such an open-ended. Yeah. Yeah, great. I'm so stoked that you also fucked me up earlier when you said that the thing about cumpleaños and like it being your fifth, because I turn 39 in a couple of months, and I'm like, oh shit, this is the 40th one, dude. It's a big deal.
Exactly. Right. Yeah. So when you turn 39, then your 40th year begins,
right? Well, and maybe that's why they call it over the hill when it's your 40th, because you already did your 40th year. Same sort of concept, right?
So now you're all like, I gotta get ready, man. I got stuff to do.
I know, dude. I got 2 months to like really turn it on and figure it out.
The funny thing is, like, I had been thinking I had been like, yeah, when I turn 50, there's certain things I want to do. And then I realized, like, oh no, shit, this is my 50th year, And then also like, well, I'm doing them. I'm doing this stuff. Yeah. So it's cool. Yeah. But yeah, it's so cool that you guys turned up this evening. This is the eve of my departure. Right before you literally. It's crazy. It's amazing. I love it. I love it.
Right on. Well, do you have anything you want to plug? Where can we find you? You got an Instagram account.
Well, my name, exactly. Yeah. What's great, my parents did me right with a unique name.
Yeah.
I feel that.
There is no other Bowen Dwelle.
You get all the emails and the websites and the Instagram and the Snapchat.
That's right. They're just, so bowendwelle.com. BOWENDWELLE, Bowen Dwelle. There is no other. Yeah. So you'll find me. That's my website, Bowen Dwelle. That's my Insta. My Facebook, my whatever, if you want to find me. And if you want to talk about kite surfing, paragliding, trail running, Brazil, not drinking or drinking less, if you want to talk about writing, or San Francisco, or geography or urban planning or the Battery or I don't know, like any of San Francisco or skateboarding or van life in the Metris.
Yeah.
You want to talk about Metris, van life.
Tomorrow your first year of vanning begins.
Yeah, that's right.
We call it our vaniversary.
Yeah.
So there you go.
Yes, I've heard this term too, vanning. I love it.
It's
so cruisy.
Yeah.
It's like van.
Sounds cool, right?
I'm going vanning.
Yeah.
So that's so rad, you guys. Thanks so much.
Thanks for coming on.
Good deal.
What a cool party. Yep. So we say that's a wrap.
That's a wrap, man.
All right.
Foreground sounds by Spin.
Awesome, you guys. Right on.
All right, we did it, y'all. That was episode 14. Thank you so much for sticking around. If you're still listening, I really appreciate you. I had a great time talking to Bowen, and I expect that he's somebody that I will keep in touch with for days to come. Days. Also, I have touched base with him today, and he sent me a bunch of pictures and a really positive text. I think he's having a super good time traveling around in his van, but he's only 2.5 weeks in, so maybe we'll get him on the podcast after he makes whatever his next pivotal decision is going to be. Thanks again for listening. I hope you enjoyed it, and we'll be back next Tuesday with another episode of From the Van.